Sure. Radhe Radhe, good morning, good evening, everyone. Radhe Radhe, Auntie Ji. How are you doing? No audio yet. Morning, good evening, everyone. Welcome. We have a few minutes, so if you want to talk about something, some informal talk, we can certainly discuss that. Or if you want to, I don't see anybody, and everybody's well known, I guess. Archana Ji, Radhe Radhe, are you joining us from? Radhe Radhe, Archana Ji.
We can't hear.
Shyamji is joining as well. So we have a couple of minutes. If you want to talk about something, we have a little bit of time. We don't have a preceding session today, so it gives us an opportunity to informally engage. Radhe Radhe, good morning, good evening, everyone. Hope you're doing great. We'll start in about 60 minutes, seconds rather, not minutes. We'll wrap up in about 60 minutes. Radhe Radhe, Shyamji, how are you doing?
All good. Thank you so much.
Good to see you.
Thank you, Rahul.
Good.
As always, good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. So we have, we see Shefali as well. Radhe Radhe, Shefali, good morning.
Radhe Radhe, good morning. Good evening.
So we have two friends. One joins from school, the other one is joining from Katra. That's the spirit.
Yeah.
All right. Good morning. Good evening, everyone. We'll be starting shortly. I think it's 9 p.m. So let's get started with our opening prayers. Today we have a hard stop at 10 because we have a book club also starting shortly afterwards. So let's get started. I'm going to share my screen and we'll get started with our opening prayers. Give me a sec. And you need to go. You can't just show up like this, okay? Go. Say hello and then go.
Hi, Nevan. How are you? Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
Chalo. Go. Say bye.
Hasmita came running with Inji seeing Nevan.
Hello. Okay.
All right. Left now. He's very happy. He came in from a carnival today, so he's pretty excited about it. Okay, so let's get started. It's 9 o'clock. We'll do our opening prayers and we'll get underway. So yesterday we discussed, we were on chapter 4, verse 14, and we were just setting the ground for that a little bit and took that opportunity to discuss a little bit about inner world and outer world. We'll discuss a little more and plus a few more concepts here, especially around the asat sat aspect of it, and then what is mithya part of it. I think it was a little confusing, so I'll try to clarify that today. So let's get started with our opening prayers. I'm going to share my screen. It's already here, and we'll do our opening prayers. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagatgurum. Krishnam Vande. In progress back. Okay, so we'll do a quick recap of the shloka. Maybe we'll pick up top 5 today. We have a bit of content to cover, and then we have a hard stop as well. So let's quickly do that. Namam karmani limpanti name karma phale spriha iti mam yobhijanati karma bhirna sabadhyate. All right, we'll take a few hands today and then we will get into the topic of our discussion today real quick. Yes, Rahul?
Radhe Radhe Maniji.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Manishi.
Namam karmani limpanti name karma phale spriha iti mam yobhijanati karma bhirna sapadyate. Radhe Radhe.
Very nice, Manishi. Radhe Radhe. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
A couple of other hands.
Radhe Radhe Ashutoshi.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Ashutoshi.
Namam karmani limpanti name karma phale spriha iti mang yodhijanati karma bhirna shabadhyate.
Thank you. Very nice, Ashutoshi. Radhe Radhe. Okay. See one more hand.
Radhe Radhe Jai Mataji.
Radhe Radhe. Namam karmani limpanti name karma phale spriha iti mam yobhijanati karma bhirna sabadhyate.
Very nice, Sandhya. Radhe Radhe and Jai Mata Ki. By the way, Sandhya is traveling to Vaishno Devi and she's on her way and still joining. So that's tremendous. Good job. All right, let's take a few more hands.
Radhe Radhe Anita ji.
Radhe Radhe. Namam karmani limpanti name karma phale spruha iti mam yobhijanati karma bhinra sabhadyate. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anita ji. All right, I think we have one more hand we can take and then we'll get started.
Radhe Radhe Akshata ji.
Radhe Radhe. Namam karmani limpanti name karma phale smruha iti mam yobhi gnanati karma bhirna sabhadyate. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe, very nice, Akshita ji. And thank you. So the short translation for this shloka, have we covered everybody? Yeah, I think we have. Short translation for this shloka goes like, activities do not taint me, nor do I desire the fruits of action. One who knows me in this way is never bound by the karmic reactions of work. And we took a step back and said, okay, what is it that makes our activities tainted? Right? God is saying that my activities do not taint me. And then what is it that makes our reactions binding or having reactions to our karmic works? Right? That is what we spoke about the concept of inner world and outer world. We'll go a little deeper and just continue with that discussion. So what is more important is what we are going to discuss today. If you look at it, what goes in here or what goes in on the other side, right? So it is said that, in a humorous way, of course, that when Brahmaji created humans, he gave them 2 stomachs. One that we know, which gets satiated temporarily, at least when we eat food, and the other one here, right, which never gets satiated. It continues generating thoughts and has a world of its own, like we discussed yesterday. And it never tires. And we also spoke that the best experience we can have is when is the experience of experiencing nothing, when we are in deep sleep. That is the best experience which is possible in this material world. When we wake up, say, right? That's why sometimes I feel Kumbhakaran was the most sorted out guy in Ramayana. Okay, obviously it was a bit of a curse, but in material world, that is the topmost bliss. And it is said when your chatter ceases to happen, your mind ceases to exist, you are in touch with your reality, and you actually get a hug from God. Paramatma gives you an alingan, it says as scriptures, and that is why that bliss, nothing can be replicated. Nobody can replicate that bliss in your wakeful state. Yes, when you do mindful meditation and you start realizing the bliss of God, then you get closer to that. But other than that, in wakeful state, we cannot. Unless you perfected your root dhyan and meditation and get into those, even in yogic path, people who sit on samadhis for years and years, they are enjoying that bliss. It's not that they are kind of just sitting and getting bored. So anyways, so today we are going to discuss which is more important. Obviously, we put things in our mouth and then we put a lot of things in our head also. We are going to focus on the head aspect of it, not so much on the food today. Obviously, food is important. We will get into that in later chapters, the tamasic, rajasic, and sattvic food. So obviously, the food has a bearing, indirect bearing on our mind as well, in the sense that whatever we eat, 1/3 of it becomes our body, 1/3 of it becomes our mind, and 1/3 of it is eliminated by the body. Okay. So in that sense, Jasa an vaisa man, there is a saying. So what you end up eating, that's who you become, right? Within a matter of few hours, if you've eaten a bread or some junk food, that becomes part of your body and part of your conscious mind as well. That is how important food is. However, we are going to focus on the other part of it. What you put in here is the direct stuff that you're putting in there, okay, which is way, way, way more important. And that's where that contributes to the manifestation of that vast inner world that we spoke about yesterday, which is much more powerful than the external world. Okay, let's continue now on that discussion. So we spoke about these two worlds, external world, which is made up of gross elements, panchatattva, and the internal worlds, which resides in everybody's mind, and it is made up of desires. And those desires, where do they come from? They are all the impressions that we have carried from multiple lifetimes, that we have been carrying through multiple lifetimes. All the impressions, desires, the cravings and thoughts that it has generated, those imprints is what results in this inner world. Then let's do a quick recap of this concept, because it was a bit confusing yesterday. So I want to just clarify that so that we are all on the same page. Now, there is a sat and there is an asat. When somebody says that this world is mithya, in some philosophies, in Gyan Marg also, it is said it is mithya, it is an illusion. Mithya means it doesn't exist, it's unreal. Scripture says it's actually not mithya, it is actually temporary, it is asat. External world is asat. And then the sat is like satsang also. Sat is something which is eternal. Sat is God. God is also called Sat Chit Anand, right? So these are the two entities. Now, God is everlasting. Let's look at the definition of that. And he's called Sat, eternally existing. And his name is Satchidanand as well. And the soul is imperishable as well. And it is also called Satchidanand, but it is Anu. It is Anusat, Anuchit, and Anuanand. Now, if we look at the world, the body, it ceases to exist. And that is why it is called Asat, temporary, like the world. And the entity Maya, from the which world has been made, is also Sat. That is the entity which has made this world. That is also Sat. They are all eternal entities. However, the world itself is Asat, temporary. World is Asat, temporary. It is not Mithya. It very much exists. If we say Mithya, Kathopanishad says that God created this world and then he permeated every atom of it. Right? If he has permeated every atom of it, how can it be Mithya? That means God is an illusion. It negates the definition of God itself. And Kathopanishad explains, how did he create? Like a spider creates a web. Where does it get the material? From its own body. And then when it annihilates the world during Mahapralaya or Pralay, Where does that go? Inside its own body. So it manifested the world and then permeated every atom. So if you look at it at a micro level or at a macro level, everything is a spin. Even the jad aspect of it, atoms, subatomic particles, that energy is actually Garbo Dishai Vishnu. The scriptures explain us is actually permeated every atom. That basically sustains the matter also at a microscopic level. Because if that energy is not there at an atomic level, let's say the neutron, proton, or whatever quarks, whatever particle subatomic level, right, you want to go, if their axis, their spin, their velocity, their distance, anything of that is changed just a little bit, it will collapse or it will all become plasma. That is how perfect this creation is. Right? Even Earth, if you look at it, it rotates around the sun. Galaxies are rotating around each other. They are maintaining their orbit without succumbing to the centripetal force that we have learned in physics, because it has the right axis, right distance, right velocity, and it is able to maintain that. Is it happening automatically through a bang? No. God is sustaining that. So that is why world is temporary, but it is real. I hope you get that concept. It is very, very important to know that. Now, through your inner world, when I talked about mithya aspect of it, illusion, that illusion is delusion, or illusion is when we perceive happiness in the world. That part is the mithya part of it. Okay, I just want to clarify it because I was thinking why it was causing confusion. I thought maybe I didn't explain it as well as probably I should have had. So that's why I picked up some examples from Sri Maharajji's book to illustrate this concept a little more today. And this world created by mind is also temporary. Okay. Now, if this world that you are creating through mind, there are two aspects. You create the world with related to asat, which is temporary. The result will be asat. Going back to the fundamentals. Material, think with material sentiments. You get material results. So when this mind, right, which is material, of course, you contemplate upon the world that you have created around that is asat, something temporary. Results will also be temporary, and most of it will be illusory. We'll look through it through some examples, the delusion that it creates. However, with the same material mind, when you contemplate something divine, which is sat, eternal, you get divine results. So material consciousness, divine object, you get divine result, right? Material, even and divine sentiments, divine object, obviously you will get divine, and divine sentiments, material object, still you get divine. That is what Murti Puja is basically. So in this equation, anywhere divine comes, you get divine results. So even though the world, the thoughts that we create our mind, it is illusory, but when you relate it to Sat, you have those benefits around it. That is how it goes. Now let's look at some examples on the illusion or delusion that I'm talking about. Okay, I'll tell you three stories or two stories. I don't know. We'll see. Sometimes I also forget what I'm going to say. Okay, so pardon my creativity here, but anyways, so here's a boy who used to milk this cow every day. Okay, somebody's having a good laugh. And this cow, as it so happened, had a crooked horns, right? Just forming a triangle. So this was the closest I could find that picture. Not exactly, but let's say these two horns were even more closer. So it was forming a triangle. So this guy used to milk this cow, and we all have our fancies, right? When we walk, sometimes we walk on strips, and sometimes we skip one and we walk only on white strips or black strips. Similarly, this guy also started having a fancy. Always used to wonder while milking that cow that, this small gap between its horns, can I pass through it or not? Every day he will think like that. Weird, fancy, but that's what he started having every day. Can I pass through it? Can I pass through it? Every day he would think about it. Kept on thinking about it. Never tried it though. But after 2.5 years, when he continued doing that practice, one day his curiosity got the better of him. Okay, and this day he actually went ahead and attempted something that nobody in the world had attempted before. Okay, trying to sneak through that gap because his fancy had gotten, the curiosity had gotten the better of him. Now, even the cow, this kind of an act nobody had attempted with it before. So cow got freaked out. Somebody's trying to sneak through her horns. I mean, you can imagine what, and it started jumping around. And when it started jumping around, the little boy, he was flung into the air and he said, I was trying to sneak through the horns and it is death by hanging, right? He started screaming. So the villagers came and somehow rescued him. And they rescued him and they asked him, what were you trying to do here? So he said, I was trying to sneak through that gap. So they said, do you have brains? Did you not think about it? He said, of course, I thought about it. I thought about it for 2.5 years, he said, okay, before attempting it. So it's not that he didn't think about it. He did think about it. Okay, that's story number one. Random stories, right? You see some Bollywood movies, some weird stories will come one after another, and then they all regroup somewhere. So that is the first one. Yes, Rahul, you had a question?
Yeah, there is a question in the chat of the previous slide. So the question from Anusha ji is, world is Maya, but Maya is an energy of God. World is temporary. Does it not mean even Maya is temporary? Could you please clarify?
Maya is an eternal entity. Brahm, Jeev, and Maya. They are all three entities. Brahm means God, Jeev is us, and Maya. All three are eternal. However, the world which is created through Maya is called Jagat. Sansar is called Shashwatam, temporary, because everything changes, right? Even there's a quotation in English, the only thing constant in this world is change. So everything changes and then it basically ceases to exist as well in this world. It's a cyclical process, right? All the Chaturyugs happen, Mahapralay happen, all that thing is there. So although it is created by Maya, but it is temporary. The world itself is temporary, right? It's basically when it is, it comes into existence, it starts with Purusha glancing over Prakriti, and then comes the Mahan Tattva, then the Hamkar Tattva, then the Panchatan Matras, and then the Panch Mahabhut, and the world gets created. When it is Mahapralay happens, Panch Mahabhuts go back into Panchatan Matra, it rolls back into Ahamkar, it rolls back into Mahan, it rolls back into Prakriti and back into God. So that way it is temporary. Hope that clarifies.
She has a follow-up question also. Even after Mahapralaya, the world is created back. How it can be temporary?
No, it is created back. So that is why it said it's cyclical, right? So that world ceases to exist. When it ceases to exist externally, it is residing in Mahodar of Mahavishnu at that point. Okay. So and all of us souls with their current shariris, they are also in the state of limbo at that point. So that is the technical definition of it has ceased to exist. Yeah, although the entity Maya is still there, Jivatmas are still there, but that whole world, right? This whole trees, nobody came and actually planted them one by one. But when the Mahapralaya happens, they are all rolled back. So this world as we know it today, just, you might have seen movies, Ice Age and whatever, it ceases to exist at that point. And again, it is recreated, right? It's like a painting. It is basically completely evaporates and then it's recreated. That's how it goes. I think Jyoti ji had something to add. Yes, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. The definition of temporary comes from the fact that we cannot stop time. Kal Chakra is continuing to roll and nobody can stop the seasons, nobody can stop time. Even Bhagwanji has this definition going that the Chatur Yuga is going to happen and the whole time cycle is going to happen. And so that is where the temporariness comes from. And at the end of Brahma's day, the night will happen, and and like you said, it's cyclical. And a best story that I can think of regarding this is where Naraji is taught the importance of Maya, where he lives a life with somebody that he thinks is true, and he has children, he has a whole family, and then it gets wiped out, and then he's told that that was an illusion that he had created in his own mind. I hope this helps the person that needs. Radhe Radhe.
Thank you so much, Yuriki. We'll come back to that again. So, continuing with our concept that we're talking about, the first story we have heard about this little boy who thought for 2.5 years and then attempted something very fancy. Now, the second, let's look at the second concept. Here's a guy, his name is, it starts with N and ends with N as well. Okay, like my name, but with a little bit of a difference. Okay, his name was Newton. So then he was sitting under a tree and an apple fell on its head. And then he thought and thought and thought, and finally he came up with a law. He didn't invent it, he discovered it. He said there is gravity, and as we know it today, right? Again, there's a lame joke I know that about gravity, that somebody had put it in my college. One of people, he had put a big board there in his room that it's not gravity, Earth sucks. And I actually truly believed in it for a while. But anyways, so that was Newton. That is a second short story. Third one is of somebody named Siddharth. After that, he came to be known as Buddha. So he saw some misery, right? His father had kept him very protected from, because somebody had told in his horoscope that he'll become a sage. And his father had been very protective about it. But one day he saw misery, and then he thought, even I'll be subjected to old birth, this old age, disease, and death, and this kind of a thing. And that troubled him so much that he actually figured out the way out of this matrix. Okay. So this is the third story, way out of the matrix, and how we can get beyond the shackles of Maya itself. So what is the common denominator between all the three stories here? Right? There are random stories. However, there is a common thing here. There is something common in that story. Anybody wants to attempt that? Yes, a couple of hands, real quick.
Yes, Shyamji.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe. It's all the thought process written by the thought process. How the mind works. It's how my mind works. It can go either way. Like the first case, the cow and the horns. Second case, Newton discovered gravity. And the third case, Siddhartha became Buddha. It's all in the mind. That's what I think. Radhe Radhe.
Good point. Thank you so much, Shyamji. Yes, Survi. And then
Radhe Radhe. It is contemplation. Whatever thoughts come to our mind, when we contemplate it, we do those actions. Like my mind is like a garden. As we sow, shall we reap.
great point. That is the power. Very true. Great point, Urvi. Yes, Sri Ramya. Real quick.
Radhe Radhe. I agree with both. I just have to add one more thing, that it is repeated contemplation.
Great point. I think you made the point here. True. It's basically when we repeatedly think over something, it can lead to results. Right. In the first case, it's something whimsical contemplation we do. Right now, if I were to look at it, map it back to real life, those are the kind of contemplations we indulge in life. Don't add much value, and we keep thinking about those things. Right. As it happened to this boy, death by hanging kind of a scenario was created. And when people asked, did you not? And those are the kind of contemplations we do in our lives, which can result in weird results, not really adding too much of value. Second is productive contemplation, like Newton did. He also saw apple falling, but that was something productive. And it resulted in something good that humanity is reaping dividends from even till now. Right? So much of physics is based around that. And third is called super productive. Right? People say we do chinta, we are worried about this and we are worried about that. What will happen in Ukraine and what will happen with Pakistan if Imran Khan is, army takes over, or what will happen if Dhoni is stripped of captaincy and Jadeja becomes, and then what will happen if Trump comes back to power again, and what will happen if my kid does not make it to MIT this year. All those things, when we worry, those chintas we do, let's take it to another level. Let's think about actually getting out of, if we are so troubled with this world, let's figure out a way to get out of the misery and hit the root cause of it, like Buddha did. So that chinta was actually productive. It led to something good, right? That was a productive chintan instead of simple chinta kind of a thing, right? We worry about things, but we don't worry about the real thing that is afflicting us, right? Our scriptures tell us there are 4 problems we are dealing with. Jan, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi, right? These are the 4 problems that we all are afflicted with, but we are not worried about that, and rest all the world of problems we will create around ourselves. So the point here is wherever our mind takes us, I think there's going to be session on contemplation, so we'll not go too deep into this one. We'll continue after this one if there's, so attend that book club. I think that is related to this topic only today. But then the point here is our mind can actually play tricks with us. And when we spoke about inner world, the discussion that we are having, it's basically related to that as well. But the truth about that is it creates delusions, especially if, like in the first scenario, we can do productive chintan, we can do something which actually uplifts us, because it's only through this mind we can do roop dhyan or contemplate upon God as well. But if we do our contemplation on something which is asat, temporary, let's look at some of the examples, how the delusion is created in our inner world. And then the discussion that we are going to have today, time permitting, however much we can have, is how do we tackle this inner world? How do we narrow it down and to a level that is really beneficial for us and no more than that? Okay, let's look at some of the stories here. Here's a mother with a child. Okay, so we think that the cuteness or the beauty is a source of happiness. Let's look at this concept through a couple of examples. Now, this mother, what happens is her baby is not so good looking, was a bit ugly, squint eyes and kind of a deal, right? And she loses him in a fair. So they go in a fair and she loses him. And then she files a report, FIR, in a police station, and she goes to the police station and they bring in a lot of kids in front of him. Right? She looks at them one by one, and a lot of them are very cute and good looking, but she experiences no joy looking at them. All she wants to see is her not so good looking, squint-eyed son. And when she does not see it one among them, she does not experience any kind of joy. Okay. Now, other kids were better looking, but she did not experience any happiness from them at all, because her son alone would have given her happiness. So if beauty was the source of happiness, she should have felt it from other kids. That doesn't happen. Let's look at it through another example. Here's a beautiful lady, and here's a guy who's willing to shoot her. Okay, and there's another man, as you see, he jumps in between to protect her. Now, if in further understanding, this guy who's trying to shoot her is her husband, and the one who's trying to protect her is her lover. So if beauty was the source of happiness, then both should have felt the same. That didn't happen. Right? So it is a context or our inner world which is actually driving us around this concept as well. The other truth about the happiness that we seek in this world is, let's look at it through another example, right? So the third truth, like those happiness had certain symptoms as well. So one of the things that we spoke about the worldly happiness is that it follows a certain graph or a trajectory, no matter what it is. I picked up an example which Maharaj has beautifully explained. Could be any other example. You can actually relate it to any other object as well. So let's say there is there's a girl who's very fond of kids, and she wants to have kids, right? And that is something that she thinks is going to be the source of happiness. So in order to fulfill that desire, she decides to get married. Right? Now, the first thing that happens is the independence is lost. Okay. Now, somebody will say it's fine, it's worth it. That's part of life. So, but end of the day, the gain that you're going to get is going to be much more beneficial. So that's part of it. Okay. So that happens. Now, in order to have kids, if there are some problems, she starts going through, consultations, medicines, and remedies around it. So there is a bit of a misery, because now they want to have kid and it's not happening, right? So that suffering has already started there. And then eventually she becomes pregnant after a lot of effort. So obviously the ordeal has already started, right? That suffering has started because that desire has come in. So when you go through that 9-month period, it is also a bit of an austerity and an ordeal for ladies as well. So after that, the baby is born, right? So the ordeal had started because that desire was not getting fulfilled, and then now the baby is born. Now, after the baby is born, obviously there's a happiness around it, right? Not very lasting. So that happiness is there, but then simultaneously there is a expectation from that point onwards, right? And then that is momentary. That happiness soon starts giving to way to the constant fear of losing him, and those anxieties start building up, right? What if I lose it? What if it turns out to be a bad kid? What if kind of a scenario, right? All those things start happening. And then, God forbid, if the child grows up to be a problematic child, right? Then the mother is always miserable, right? With every neighbor, she'll have a stories to tell, and then people will also say, what kind of a kid you have. So that misery has started going there as well. And if for some reason something tragic happens, right? There are situations that happen in life. If you lose that baby, obviously it's going to be very, very tormenting, or that grief is very, very natural at that point as well, right? So the conclusion is, in order to maintain any material possession, you have to put in effort, right? There's a lot of effort that goes around that. It's not a very joyful experience. You have to take on austerities, willingness to take on pain as well. And then once you attain it, then there's a sense of insecurity, protection. This should happen, that should happen. Everything should go fine. You should marry a good girl. Then they should be, this. So those kind of things that we seek out of that relation, that expectation and anxieties, they start building up. And finally, when your possession is destroyed, it's just a matter of time, right? If he marries a girl who start listening to the girl more than the mom, and the troubles are never ending, right? Nothing but suffering and pain. So this cycle keeps on repeating. Now, let's say everything goes well, right? There are phases, obviously, in the childhood, then kids are good, they are listening. Then does it stop there? No, it doesn't stop there. Then the greed takes over. That vicious cycle continues. You need more of it. And then let's say the kid is very obedient. He grows up to a nice boy or a girl, and wishes, very obedient, marries a girl or a boy that you wanted him or her to marry with, and kids are also good. Then what happens? Then you become helicopter parents. Has your greed subsided? No, it will not subside. Now you want to control their lives as well. You should do that. You should teach this to your kid, and then you should do this, and then this happen, and everything has to be perfect after that as well. Then you say, are you done with that? No. Even after 80, let's say, you are there. They say, okay, only once I see my grandkids, getting married, then I'll rest in peace. So this cycle is vicious, and it keeps on repeating, no matter what material thing you're going after, right? I've just picked up one example, but you can actually relate this to anything and everything that you see in life. And this cycle becomes a continuum cycle, becomes a story of our life in different things, right? And what was responsible for it is actually, so the point here is, whatever we experience is the deceptive result of our own imagination, nothing else. It's our inner world and what expectations we build around that thing, and the happiness that we contemplate. It's again the power of contemplation, right? We have a definition of how life should be, how sun should be, how everything should be. That keeps on deceiving us, and we make those things the focal point of our life, right? And that is why our karmas are binding, and we keep on tainting our mind, which Lord Krishna is saying that I'm not tainted by any of actions, nor are my karmas binding. And we are doing just the opposite here. Which brings me to, but before I get into that, I would like to call upon Tejal ji, who's there. So I want to tell you that we've been talking about seva aspect of it all along, right? And then we talked that, okay, seva is the best way to keep yourself inspired, right? And even a 5-minute seva cumulatively can go a long, long way, right? If because of your one share and one of your like, one person gets inspired, or they get that link that they were looking for, it's a huge seva from that sense, right? And then little bit of effort spent on that actually goes a long way. But the good thing is Tejal ji is here. She's actually created a nice structure around it. So she'll going to serve it to you on a platter with a very well-defined seva. What you need to do will not take much time, and you'll be very, very adequately engaged. So I strongly encourage you, please listen to her. And if you do this seva, that will be a huge, huge help, not just for spreading the message that a lot of volunteers are putting hard work for, but also motivate our video team who put in a lot of hard work for that. And we don't know, those 2 or 3 minutes that we spend, they can actually transform somebody's life for good. So over to you, Tejalji, to talk about it, and then we'll continue on the topic part discussion that I wanted to pick up around the inner world. We can wait for that. Over to you, Tejalji.
Thank you, Nitinji. Radhe Radhe, everyone. Nitinji, I would like to share my screen if I'm being able to do that.
I'll stop sharing for a bit.
All right. Is it visible, Nitinji?
Yes, it is. That's Sukhitvam. We can see that.
Yes, by now, Radhe Radhe, Nitinji must have drilled, and I'm sure everybody's mind is drilled with this mantra of Tat Sukh Sukhitvam, what Maharaji and basically from Narad Bhakti Darshan. So we all know this, what is this? But do we really do anything like this, that we are being able to serve God and Guru? So what I want to tell everyone today is, I'm trying to move my slide. Okay. Okay, what is seva is, we all know that we have to serve God and Guru lovingly and selflessly, as we are the part of God and we are the Anshi and he's the Ansh. So we are supposed to serve them, whether serve basically whatever we are serving, but we are the servants. So whether we serve our friends, families, Maya, or we serve God and Guru, no matter what, we are going to serve. So question is, when we were doing this at that time, the question came up that out of the, I want everyone to ask this question to ourselves, that out of world's population of, let's say 7 billion people right now, how many of them are actually engaged in seva for God and Guru? If you really think about this, there are very few people who get an opportunity to directly serve God, though we do not get it any chance directly to serve God, but even to Guru, we cannot really serve, we don't get an opportunity to serve Guru directly. So then in that case, what is the dharma? Because see, that's the only way, because whatever we actually get the knowledge, we can only fructify if we do the seva in return. Otherwise, that knowledge never gets fructified, which is written in Shastras. So we know this rule. So what do we do in that case? And that's very, very simple, because all of us, because of this, we are all here. And that's, I'm so grateful that we have internet in this world. Okay, so because of internet, you actually hear every day, Nitinji, and you all are so engaged in this group. I really love this group. I'm a silent part of this, but yes. So because of this internet, how can we serve? We all know that we are all using the social media some or the other way. Most of us have logged in from the smartphone. Some of them have done it from their computer, but we all are aware about the social media. We can serve just God and Guru. What is our Guru's mission? What is Swamiji's mission? Is to basically, as Nitinji just summarized, is to inspire people to dovetail their everything towards God. That's the only goal for it. And you believe it or not, by doing this seva of internet, where we can just look at the social media and try and use the social media in favor of God and Guru. And to do this, I highly encourage everyone to do this. What we have done this is, that's what we are going to do next. Before we do next, I just want 130 seconds before we do that. How many of us, if we can know that, how many of us are on Facebook? If you can raise your hands, I just want to take a poll here. How many of us are on the Facebook or using Facebook?
Using or misusing Facebook?
Either way. Yes. Okay, so I see quite a few hands. Okay, if you can please lower your hands. And yes, and how many of us are using YouTube? If we can just raise our hand, how many of us are using YouTube in some or the other way, or we are aware about that social media? Much more, much more. Oh my God. Mostly I as far as my screen goes, yes, almost every one of us are using it. Okay. And last question is that how many of us are using Instagram or Twitter? Instagram or Twitter? Oh my God. So yes, there are quite a few friends, of us are using this medium as well. So today what I want everyone to do is this. What we have done is, it is a huge favor we are doing. We are going to really having a fulfilling day if we do this. We have created this WhatsApp group, which is called Online Hari Guru Seva. Okay, if this is the QR code of it right now, Nitinji, 30 more seconds. I want everyone, whoever is using a computer can actually scan this, and I am pasting this link, and you just have to click on this on the chat box. Just click on this, Nitinji, 30 more seconds. I'm sorry, I'm taking your time.
No, that's fine. Please take it.
Yeah, I just want you to click this link, and this is the group wherein we will be serving you. It is a spoon feeding done to you for Seva. Just all social medias, whichever media you are preferring to, we are serving that, and you just have to do one click, write an engaging comment, like, share, whatever you feel like doing it, but you do it, and that's about it. How easy can be a Seva, and how much can we really help Swamiji's mission? I really feel thrilled that we all get to do it, without we even realizing we are going to be creating such a big thing. So I want everyone to do this right now. If I can request everyone to do it, and I am trying to see how many of us have done this. Okay, you just have to click I think this is the message going only to Rahul ji. I think I want to do it for everyone. How do I do that, Nitin ji?
You have to say everyone.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry. I apologize, because I think I just sent it to Rahul ji. Yeah, now it is to everyone. So if you can just join, if you can click on this link. Okay, all right, now we got it. Okay, so all of y'all have done a good favor to yourself, and thank you so much for this seva, because when you do this, when you will be doing this seva, your own co-host Amrita Vani ji, she is actually here just because of this kind of a seva. Somebody had done it. And somebody had just forwarded some WhatsApp message to her, and that's how she is actually here. So thank you so much, Nitinji, for giving me this opportunity. And I will look forward that everyone really participate into it and really feel fulfilling Hari Guru Seva. Radhe Radhe, everyone.
Thank you, Tejal ji. And I would request you to post that link in our group as well. And I would really request and encourage each one of you to join that 2-minute seva. It will really go a long way. And it said in spirituality, in seva meha meva, and the fruit of our sadhana is in form of seva. End of the day, we have to become Nityadas, right, of God. So the sooner we start inculcating these sanskars, the better it is, right? So even in sadhana, in advanced stages, when you go into those bliss, you have to relinquish or give up that bliss also, because sadhana beyond a point also becomes selfish. So the sooner we start building the sanskars of seva, because it automatically starts purifying us. Why? Because it has something more to do with beyond thinking about yourself, right? When you're doing that, something which you're not thinking about yourself for some bigger purpose, it automatically has a purifying effect. So thank you, Tejalji, for this initiative. I think it will go a long way, and we'll have a periodic reminders that like this. Maybe we can have a section for Tejalji once in a while to inspire again. And like I said, it's going to be in very structured manner. You'll be really told, okay, this is the video, please do this, and done. You're done basically, and it will really add up. So strongly encourage you to do that. We have tried it in the past, but this time I'm sure we'll be having a very good structure, and we'll have absolute clarity on what needs to be done. Thank you again, Tejalji. Now let's get back to, we have a few minutes, so I think we can have a discussion. Let's go back to the slide that I was having that we are going to discuss now. Are you able to see my screen? Okay. So we spoke about it, yeah, inner world. So let's get into the key concept now. What do we do how can we simplify our inner world? It's very important to simplify that. Okay, now I'm going to tee it off and maybe we can take a couple of participants. The biggest problem that we have is we keep on expanding our world needlessly. So I'm just going to get into directly to the point based on the philosophy. Unnecessarily, we keep on expanding our world, right? We have to call up somebody, right? Talk to somebody, gossip around, go to our cousins, chachas, friends, uncles' marriage, right? Build relationships unnecessarily, too many things. But our scriptures tell us engage in world only as much it is needed, right? Because if the more you will engage, the more you are giving fuel to your inner world. Because what happens is when you start engaging, eventually you will fall to the trap of rag and dvesh. You pick up any life example, your life that has come so far. Either you will have an attachment with that relation, rag, or you'll have some kind of a tiff going on with that relationship. And our scriptures tell us you have to refrain from rag and dvesh. Now you are giving fodder to cannon. When you start building too many relationships because of whatever value system you have acquired in life, scriptures tell us limit it to whatever is needed. And if you start expanding it beyond that, right, obviously it has to be limited to people who are needed for your sustenance, your close people and people who add value, right? Satsang and all that stuff. But if you needlessly keep on expanding it, you also come, make this also friend, get to know this as well. You're not doing yourself a favor because you are giving a lot of arsenal to your inner world, which is anyway seeking out such things. Right? Yesterday I gave an example. If you tell about, hey, have you heard about that padosi's son or their daughter, and all of a sudden you are here, so yeah, tell me what happened. And then you tell them that person started going to satsang and you say, oh, maybe there was some spicy gossip I could have enjoyed, right? Our ears, our mind actually craves for it. So if you needlessly keep on adding world, adding people just for the sake of company and because you feel solitude, not solitude, but you feel it's not a good strategy. Add people very carefully to your life, because only the people who are adding value are not wearing you down or not actually feeding you things which is kusang, that is the way to streamline your spiritual journey. Because your inner world is looking out, seeking out opportunities to expand, like entropy. And the more we keep on expanding it, the needless troubles will add. You will fall into rag and dvesh. It is impossible that you are neutral to any relationship. Either you will have some kind of a fascination or you'll have some kind of a tip, this person is like this. He always behaves like this, or I did that and he did that. These things will happen. And Raga Dvesh, the more relationships you keep on adding, the more Raga Dvesh will be there. Expectations will be there, this and that, all that stuff. The scripture says be careful about that. That is one thing. Anybody wanted to add anything on that? Because we have a little bit time. Please fill out the feedback tracker. I think Rahul has already posted that. We have 10 minutes, so let's have a bit of a discussion, because we have a hard stop at 10 anyways.
Radhe Padmaji.
Radhe Radhe. Just some thoughts. When we deeply contemplate upon our own mind, and we consciously contemplate any input that comes through our senses, whatever we are hearing right now, whatever we are seeing right now, whatever we are feeling right now, that is in response to everything outside, right? And it will change. In that way, in my head, it is true. Like whatever the external word is, it is true, but it is temporary, because what I'm sensing right now, in a minute, I would not be sensing the same thing. I would not be looking at the same thing. So every input that I'm getting, every minute, every second that is going into my mind, that is not a constant, that's constantly changing. So that way it is temporary. But whatever is going into my mind, and I save it in my mind, and it's like this bank that whenever our thought process wants to go to that bank and deposits that we are making, we can access it right away, even though that particular experience or that particular moment or that particular, let's say you had dinner with somebody like a year ago, or you had gone to watch a movie, right? We can immediately take that mind to going back to the past, and we also take that mind and go into the future. I need to have the financial stability, I need to have this, my kids need to have it. So we dwell upon taking our mind wherever we want, to the reality which really doesn't exist, that had not existed yet. The future did not exist yet, and the past also did not exist yet. So I think when we really dwell upon our own mind, and how many times, because I feel like our thoughts and our emotions and our feelings in the same sequence, the thoughts, emotions, and feelings of whatever the feelings of pain or anger, right? They come in, it's like waves of the ocean. But what kind of feelings do you want to make sure that they surface, and what kind of waves that you want to control, what kind of waves that you really want to surface, and what kind of feelings are really productive for your growth? When you go back to your thoughts and go back to your emotions and really work upon your own in your own capacity from inside, will help you in the same sequence, the thoughts, the emotions, and the feelings. And you can channel to some extent, or to greater extent actually, by doing whatever you do with yourself. What do you say to your mind? What do you say to your own self that you want to be exposed to? What is that you want to see with your eyes? Who are the people that you want to interact with? How many groups of chats do you want to participate? How many groups of people do you want to keep in that phone? Once in a while, just look at that phone and see the people that really are not going to help you.
Finish your thought, please.
Help you grow. So I feel like we have a spiritual duty, and rightfully so, to mend some relationship, delete some relationship, and manage some relationship, so that we can better manage our own mind in the same sequence, the thoughts, the emotions, and the feelings, so that the output is much more spiritual. Might not be perfect, but manageable.
Got it. Right. Whatever is needed for our sustenance, right? We are social animals end of the day, and whatever adds value. That is how it is. As we grow, keep on growing spiritually, it will automatically get streamlined, which is called anartha nivritti. It starts happening. But we need to make a conscious effort around that as well, because there's absolutely no dearth to how much you want to expand your world, right? For whatever reasons. Great point, Padmaji. Let's quickly hear. I can see a couple of other hands. I think you wanted to add something. You didn't get a chance. Please go ahead. And then Jyotiji.
Radhe Radhe, Jyotiji.
Radhe Radhe. I think Nitinji wanted Urvi to.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead, Jyotiji. Please go ahead. We have to.
So I just wanted to talk about Dr. Deepak Chopra's book, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, and it is all small stuff. Before we can even have that argument with somebody else, we end up having an argument within our mind. वो ये कहेगा, हम वो कहेंगे. This is how we build our arguments in our own mind. And more than the anger that we will have with the person, we end up getting more and more angry and building that within our mind. And that in itself is what causes, this mental anguish can actually cause physical ailments within our body. And it can, it can hurt us with our blood pressure, with our heart issues, and with our diabetes and everything else. So stress can be avoided by just calming our mind. And how can we simplify that? Through meditation, through contemplation, through attachment to God, and by getting away from the anartha nivritti that we have to do. Radhe Radhe.
Great point, Jyotiji. Beautiful. These are very practical tools. And second thing, I think, what is the root cause for that? I think we have to get to the fundamental part of it as well, right? It's like that Kasturi Mirik, right? That fountain of bliss that we are looking for is within us. Other root cause for that, to seek out things, to expand your world. What is causing us? I think that's again an introspection we need to do. Is it because we are insecure? Is it that we are seeking happiness? What is it that we are seeking basically? God is saying in Narad Bhakti Darshan to become nirashrit. And on the other hand, we want to become more and more ashrit. That is again going against the spirituality principle, right? We think about having company, having this and that, and yeah, that is true. But end of the day, if you go by the principles, spiritual principles, we come alone and we go alone. And God says that you have to come with your arms raised, with no ashray whatsoever, right? Whether it's related to your relatives, friends, bank balance, whatever it is. So nirashrit is the thing where you start banking more and more on God and less on the world itself. So streamlining our inner world through minimizing our interactions on the outer world is also very important. That's what Maharaj Ji, in fact, in his lectures very clearly says that, limit your worldly interactions, because more you add, more ragdvesh, and more you are going to expand your inner world, and further away you will go from spiritual principles and from God as well. That is one of the ways. Great point. Let's hear from Urvi.
Radhe Radhe, Urviji.
Radhe Radhe. I wanted to add that all of us are very fortunate to have access to divine knowledge. So using this knowledge, we should contemplate that there is no happiness in this world, and the happiness we're seeking is in God. So this way, our desires will be dovetailed towards God, like Antahu tohi tajenge pamar tu na taje abhite, man pachatai hai avasar bite. And also, the sovereign duty in our life is to suppress our lower nature and choose our superior nature, because the lower nature will degrade you and the superior nature will uplift you. And if you feel pain in choosing your superior nature, then embrace that pain, because that will give you a sense of fulfillment. And as Swamiji says, a sadhak is the one who walks thought by thought. So we have to keep a check of every thought that comes to our mind, and we can know a good thought by the feeling it gives us. And if some negative thought comes, we should try thinking of an opposite thought. Like if a thought of pride comes in, we should try creating a thought of humility and act consciously more than compulsively.
Conscious.
That's
beautiful, Urvi. It was like a flow of a river. If it was cricket, I would have said you hit a 6. And if it was baseball, you hit a home run. Loved it. Every part of it. Really well thought through. And it is backed with a firm conviction. I could sense that. Beautiful points. And if you can send that, whatever you recited, that would be wonderful. Okay. I'll memorize it and then impress people here in one of the sessions. Beautiful, that one. Yes, Kumarji, and it is very true. If actually we would have gotten happiness the way we are seeking, we should have been the most blissful people on this earth. You know why? Because all the objects that we are seeking are material. And if you were truly material, we would have been ecstatic by now. But that is not happening. That itself is indicating we are missing the point somewhere. We are divine and we are seeking happiness in the material world. Just needs to correct that. Yes, Kumarji, real quick.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe.
About a minute.
Yeah, when you what Urviji said, that's exactly what I had in mind. So beautifully said. I would not have been able to say it as well. Instead of the 6 is also a good metaphor. I would say a flowing cover drive, like one of those. Yeah, like
He's cover drive, right? On the
cover drive. Yeah, so smooth, right? Fantastic. Yeah. So we get good thoughts and bad thoughts in our mind, right? So many a time we kind of ruminate over those bad thoughts, and that's where the issue is, or most of the times, right? So again, we cannot get rid of the bad thoughts. They will come as part of it. But, obviously we slowly learn to be just an observer, not contemplate on those things, but on the good thoughts, and be, like all these things which we do, right? The satsang and sadhana and all that stuff. For example, when I come to these sessions, I'm like, I don't know whether to call it happiness or bliss. I cannot really have any bad thought. It just, and let's say I had a bad thought just 5 minutes back. I come to these sessions or to Swamiji's sessions. It just goes away. It just disappears. It just melts away. So I think that's where that's why I probably got addicted to all these things as well.
That's good.
Good addiction, right?
Good addiction to have for
sure.
Yeah,
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe, beautiful point. So with that, we have come to the top of our hour. Stay safe. Have a great weekend. You can stay back for the mind management class and keep devouring the nectar of divine knowledge, and you will feel the high for the rest of the weekend. So have a blissful weekend, and I look forward to seeing you on Monday. Radhe Radhe. Monday and Tuesday morning. Radhe Radhe.
Thank you, Nitinji. Over to you.
Over to you. Yeah, go ahead, Ajay and Sunil Bhai.